this is what's going to happen. Okay, so you've done your bit checking on legislation. I've just checked on my legislation. As I said to you, the shop does not have to accept it just because it is legal tender. You said it's legal tender. You are correct. However, it is a commemorative coin. On the internet, they're worth about 20 quid.
Well,
right, so here is what is going to happen. Either you are going to pay for your fuel correctly, or you are going to fill out their civil recovery form so that you can arrange to make payment at a later date, or I'm going to arrest you for bilking.
What's bilking?
Bilking, making off without payment. You've got to the point where payment is due. Mm-hmm. You're now refusing to make payment. Therefore, I will treat it as a criminal offence. So how would you wish to proceed at this point?
Well, I have got means to pay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm not going to fill out a civil recovery form.
Okay, right. So what's the means that
what's the option two?
So option one is either you pay. Option two is you fill out the form. Option three is that you get arrested.
Well, pay.
No, you pay with legal tender that they will accept.
That is legal tender.
No, they don't have,
But if this is a £50 note and he said, oh, look, we don't accept £50 notes because there's lots of forgeries.
Exactly.
Would you be doing exactly the same thing now?
Yes. So if you go into a corner shop and try and pay for a penny chew with a £50 note, they are perfectly within their rights to refuse that sale.
The sergeant's opening accusation of bilking falls apart immediately. Under the Theft Act 1978, making off without payment requires two clear elements: actually leaving the premises and intending to avoid payment. The auditor did neither. He was still on site, sitting in his car, actively offering to pay. When the auditor produces a £100 Royal Mint coin, the sergeant makes things worse by claiming it depends on what the shop will accept. But that's not how the law works. Once fuel has been dispensed, a debt exists, and offering legal tender lawfully settles that debt. A cashier's personal preference or ignorance of the law can't override statute. By siding with Tesco instead of the law, the sergeant showed he had no understanding of even the most basic principles of legal tender.
But this is different because...
No, it's not different.
No,
you have offered a form of payment that they will not accept. The principle is exactly the same.
Well, if you arrest me, it'll be a wrongful arrest.
Yeah. It's not. It's a lawful arrest because I've explained the situation and I've explained that I believe you're doing this for
a sergeant
reason.
or officer?
I am a sergeant.
Right.
Okay. So my point is also that coin is not worth the face value of it. It's not legal tender in such a way that this shop has to accept it as being valued at £100.
Okay. So
it has, hang on. Short of the mark.
No, I'm not. So it is got a face value of £100. So it is worth £100.
It's not.
Well, you say that, but the Bank of England, the House of Commons, the state, all the institutions that came before you say it is, right? But you say it isn't, right? Now you say it's only worth whatever you say it was. Interestingly, I don't know if you've looked at the price of silver, but that's probably worth about £48 in silver.
So
hang on, I haven't finished yet. So that's £48 in silver.
Yeah.
Whereas, how much is a £20 note or a £50 note worth in plastic? What, a penny or two?
This is where the sergeant's credibility completely collapses. When the auditor rightly points out that the coin carries a face value of £100, the sergeant dismisses it as just commemorative. Again, that's not how the law works. A coin minted by the Royal Mint with an assigned face value is legal tender. Whether it's commemorative or in general circulation doesn't matter, its status comes from legislation, not from an officer's opinion or a cashier's preference. By claiming the coin doesn't carry its face value, the sergeant exposed a complete lack of understanding of currency law. Commemorative or not, the £100 coin is backed by the Crown and the Treasury, meaning it must be accepted for payment of a lawful debt.
Do you want to check to make sure it's not an unlawful arrest?
Another unit, please. This chap's about to be arrested.
But it'd be unlawful arrest.
Well, it's not a wrongful arrest.
It would be a wrongful arrest. Yeah. Well, how can you arrest somebody for refusing to pay when they're offering to pay with a coin in the ground?
Because you're not offering to pay with payment that they can accept or will accept or have to accept. No.
Now, interestingly, you said that you've done some research on this, and I've done this before.
Yeah.
Well, what was the outcome of it last time?
It was no further action.
Why was that then?
I don't know.
Well, how come you've got a record of that?
I'm about to let you drive off from here.
Well, how come you got a record that I did it last time, but you haven't got a record of the outcome?
Why? Because I haven't got time to look at that right now.
But you have got time to arrest me and deal with all the paperwork that'll be involved in that.
Yep.
So that's just abusing your power, I think, because what you're trying to do
is your power proportionally. These people here are trying to run a business, and you are making life extremely difficult by being obstructive in how you're going to pay.
No, I'm not.
The sergeant even admits he's dealt with this exact situation before, yet can't explain what the outcome was. That alone proves he hasn't learned a single thing from past experience. He's just repeating the same heavy-handed routine without reflection or understanding. What makes it worse is his refusal to even check. When asked, he shrugs it off, claiming he doesn't have time to look into the result. Yet seconds later, he boasts about having time to arrest and fill out all the accompanying paperwork. That's not policing, that's pure ego. Arrest should always be a last resort, based on clear facts. And here, the facts were staring him right in the face. The auditor hadn't left, had offered payment, and was holding lawful currency.
I am only here to enforce the law. I'm not here to decide. I just suspect that an offence has taken place. Okay? So I'm not convicting you, and you're refusing, to cooperate with me any further. You're refusing to resolve this situation by giving these people your details. So therefore,
No, don't, because what you're trying to encourage me to do is not to give them my details, but to fill out a legally binding form. You're actually encouraging me to fill out a legally binding form, right? That would be detrimental to me.
Why? Because you have to pay for your fuel just like everybody else at this petrol station.
No, because you're forcing me not to use cash. It's exactly the same as
I'm forcing you to provide the legal tender that this business is willing to accept.
But it's not for them to pick and choose.
Which is, absolutely.
No, it's not.
If they will only accept payment in Pokemon cards, that is entirely up to them.
Yeah, but they need to state that on the pump, right? When I take the fuel, they say payment only in Pokemon. I'm not trying to. What do you think I'm trying to achieve then out of this?
So why are you not willing to offer any other sort of payment? Do you have bank cards on you?
Maybe it's a matter of principle. This is the coin of the realm. You shouldn't be threatening to arrest me because of their preference as to what type of note or coin they accept. That's ridiculous.
The sergeant's attempt to spin this as the auditor pulling a fast one is laughable. A fast one is when someone sneaks off without paying, not when they stand there in plain sight offering legal tender directly to the cashier. The entire accusation crumbles the moment you realize the auditor never left the forecourt, never concealed his intent, and openly presented a £100 coin issued by the Royal Mint. When the sergeant presses, asking, why not pay another way, the auditor's response cuts through perfectly. It's about principle. He shouldn't have to bend the law simply because a store or an officer doesn't like the method of payment. The law recognizes that coin is valid currency. If retailers can reject it, and the police back them up with threats of arrest, then it's no longer the law defining what counts as money, it's personal preference.
That's not your job, is it, to say what type of coin that Tesco accepts or not?
It's your job to make sure that you don't go past the point of payment without making
Well,
payment.
I haven't driven off, have I? I've got every intention of paying with this coin.
No.
If I had no intention, if I was trying to do something dishonest, I'd driven off, wouldn't I? But the fact is, I waited here for you to come and I've discussed it with you. I've tried to explain, being very civil, don't be rude, have I? In any way, I've got no disrespect for the police whatsoever. Might go downhill a bit if you arrest me unlawfully.
Okay.
I just think, please just check that it's a lawful arrest. I don't think it is.
I believe it is.
And the whole point of cash and legal tender is that you cannot be successfully prosecuted for non-payment if you've offered legal tender. So if I had Scottish notes, right, now they're not legal tender in the UK, they're not legal tender full stop, but Tesco's actually accept those.
The auditor nailed it when he said, you can't be prosecuted for non-payment if you've already offered legal tender. That's the entire purpose of legal tender. Once it's offered, the debt is discharged, regardless of whether the retailer likes it. The offence of making off without payment only applies when someone leaves without paying and intends to avoid doing so altogether. His comparison to Scottish banknotes was spot on. Technically, they're not legal tender in England, yet retailers across the country accept them daily without any issue. So how can Tesco happily take Scottish notes but reject an official UK £100 coin that is legal tender? It exposes the absurdity of the sergeant's logic. The issue wasn't the auditor's method of payment, it was the store's inconsistency, backed up by bad policing.
There was an invitation to take the fuel, and I've taken the fuel, and now I've got a debt, and I'm offering to pay the debt in legal tender. Now in the store, it's different, because I haven't taken the food, have I? In fact, if I'd have eaten the food, I'd be obligated to pay for it, and then it'd be the same scenario, just the same as if you went into a restaurant and had a meal, and then you have to pay afterwards, and you offered to pay in that. Well, they can't lawfully have you prosecuted for failure to pay if you've offered a reasonable means of payment and they've refused to accept it.
But you've refused to identify yourself to this person.
Well, I don't need to, do I?
I'm now starting to view your actions as being dishonest.
How
So
have I been
therefore, I
dishonest?
suspect an offence is going to
How have I been dishonest?
because you're refusing to give your information to this gentleman, so that
But he's not entitled to my information, is he?
he is.
Okay, if I told you
No,
what my...
because you have a debt to settle up with him.
This is...
So to go to the restaurant scenario,
Yeah.
if you ate your meal and then said, "Oh, I've forgotten my wallet. I've got no means of paying."
Oh, no means paying.
Yeah. Okay. So at that point, you're not being dishonest. At the point that you refuse to identify yourself, or you put Mickey Mouse, care of Disney World, on a piece of paper and say, "Here's my details," you're then becoming dishonest.
What about if, like, we went to the restaurant, we had a meal,
Yeah.
right, and then I pulled out a £50 note, and they said, "Look, we don't accept £50 notes."
Yeah.
They can't make a decision about refusing to accept the £50 notes when you owe them money. They can only refuse to, no, they can only refuse to go through with the transaction in the first place. It's only because you've had the goods and you owe a debt that they can't refuse to accept the money.
The auditor's restaurant analogy drives the point home with brutal clarity. Once goods have been supplied, the business can't suddenly decide which lawful payments they'll accept. A restaurant can refuse a £50 note before service, but not after the meal's been eaten. The same principle applies here. The fuel was already dispensed, and the auditor offered legal tender, case closed. The sergeant's failure to recognize that wasn't a small oversight, it was a complete collapse of basic legal understanding. Legal tender exists precisely so that once it's offered, the debt is discharged, full stop. By siding with Tesco's preference over the statute, the sergeant turned a simple civil matter into a criminal one that never should have existed.
Right, so these coins are made by the Royal Mint.
Yeah, and they are legal tender.
And they are
No
legal
argument
tender.
there.
Yeah. So how can I be refusing to pay and being dishonest in any way when I'm offering to pay with a coin of the realm, a legal
Because
tender
you've
coin?
offered a form of payment that they are unable or unwilling to accept. Therefore, as I said, the onus is on you to find alternative means. You've failed to do that.
Okay.
And you are now proposing to leave here without actually giving any means of identification so they can arrange at a later date to make payment with you.
Okay.
So therefore, because of that, I suspect that you are about to commit an offence of making off without payment.
See, now I reckon that if you've offered to pay, and I've offered to pay lots of times, got it on video, and
Yeah.
right, and they refuse to accept the payment, I can't see how that I've committed a crime, even if I don't
failed
pay.
to provide an alternative means of payment or come to an alternative agreement.
So what you're suggesting is that you're going to arrest me based on the opinion of a Tesco staff member,
No,
whereas another member of staff might
based
have
on my suspicion.
suspicion.
I'm sure with the amount of time this gentleman has spent here, and the fact that other colleagues are aware of the fact that we have been here for half an hour,
Nah, 16 minutes.
I'm sure if he were able to take that coin, he would have done it by now, because he's got plenty of other things to do. You are costing them money by the fact that your car's sat here taking out these two lanes.
Well, I've offered to move it, but he said no.
If they could,
I offered to move it, but he said no.
But if they were willing to take this at any point, they would have done by
Now, don't you think, Ben, right, that the country's biggest retailer would have a simple, basic understanding of coins of the realm and the legal tender situation and what they can do and what they can't do?
Well, they clearly do by the fact that they are not obliged to take it just because it's legal tender.
Because he said so. But how do you know he's right? And how do you know that what he's saying is the opinion of Tesco's as a company as a whole?
It's not that he's right, it's that the Bank of England is right. And it's the Bank of England that states that the shopkeepers are not legally obliged to accept any royal tender.
Right, okay, I understand where you're coming from with that, but that's referring to buying something from a store, not for paying a debt.
Okay, it's still the same
No, it's not.
situation.
No, it's not.
That's fine.
It's actually on the Bank of England website what legal tender is.
Yeah, it is. As I said, I have no argument with you about that at all.
The sergeant tries to sound clever by quoting the Bank of England, claiming shopkeepers aren't legally required to accept legal tender. On the surface, that's technically true, retailers can choose what forms of payment they'll take. But the sergeant completely ignores the context. That rule only applies before goods are supplied. Once goods or services have been provided, a debt already exists, and legal tender discharges that debt whether the business likes it or not. The auditor nailed that distinction perfectly. Buying fuel isn't like picking something off a shelf where the store can refuse cash in advance. The moment the fuel hit the tank, the transaction was no longer optional. At that stage, the only question was whether the customer offered valid legal tender, and he did.
Okay, so I'm arresting you on suspicion of making off without payment. You do not have to say anything, but it may harm your defence if you do not mention when questioned, something on which you later will rely on in court. Anything you do say may be within in evidence. Do you understand?
Yep.
Okay, so my intention at this time is to take you to Exeter Police Station, where you'll be put into custody. The reason for that is for the prompt and effective investigation of the offence and to confirm your identity and your name and address.
Well, it'll be unlawful arrest, won't it?
No, not at all.
Right, where do you want me to park
I
my
have
car
the
then?
suspicion that you're about to commit an offence.
Well, what offence am I committing?
I've told you, I think you're about to make off without payment. And if I don't arrest you, then you will make off without payment. So there's my grounds.
Well, I'm offering
Okay,
to make
can you come
payment.
out of the car, please,
Yeah,
sir?
sure, no.
Okay.
There's no excuse violence, is there?
No, well, step out of the car.
Let me just get my affairs together, all right?
Okay. Do you want to provide your details, or are you going to go to custody?
Well, I'll find my details for you.
Yeah, but do you want to provide them to this man here?
No, but you want me to fill out a legal document.
Yep.
No, I'm not filling out a legal
Okay,
document.
out of the car then, please, sir.
The sergeant's justification for the arrest is beyond absurd. He openly admits the auditor hasn't committed an offence, only that he might in the future. That's not how the law works. The update makes it even clearer just how wrong this was. After being arrested, the auditor was dragged into custody, interrogated, and treated like a criminal over nothing more than a payment dispute created by Tesco's own staff. But instead of backing down, he fought back and won. The outcome? A £5,000 settlement. That figure speaks volumes about how badly the police mishandled this situation. You don't pay out thousands unless you know you're in the wrong. This entire case exposes how fragile policing becomes when officers ignore the fundamentals of the law. The sergeant claimed power based on what IFS, inventing criminal intent that didn't exist. His refusal to acknowledge the £100 coin as legal tender only deepened the farce. Tesco failed in their obligation, yet the auditor was the one dragged off. That's upside-down policing. Worse still was the arrogance layered on top of the ignorance, brushing off challenges, admitting he didn't know previous outcomes, and still pressing ahead with a baseless arrest. That's not protecting the public, that's protecting ego. And in the end, that £5,000 payout says it all. It proves that when officers overstep, the law still has teeth. The auditor wasn't just right, he was vindicated in the strongest way possible. This case should serve as a wake-up call to every officer out there: respect the law you claim to enforce, or the courts will teach it to you one payout at a time. That's it for today's video. If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. It really helps keep independent coverage alive. And be sure to check out Brett Chamberlain's channel, linked in the description. Show him some support, and as always, thanks for watching.